So that is equivalent to or that is equal to 1. So ganun natin sinisimplify yung zero exponents. So paano nga ba natin gagawin yon? So of course, much better. A very nice day to all of you, my dear students. It's very nice. It's because today going to discuss a very nice lesson. A lesson that I guess easy for many of you. So hopefully it's easy talaga. So ano ba yung lesson na i-discuss natin for today? So we are now on lesson number 7. So lesson number 7 will focus on discussing zero exponents. So here, we are going to encounter exponents na zero. So if your exponent is zero, that means your expression is not yet in simplified form. So what are you going to do in this lesson? So you are going to simplify here expressions involving zero exponents. And aside from that, you are now here going to apply the different laws of exponent that we have discussed the last time. So the laws of exponent, particularly product rule, power of a product rule, power of a quotient rule, and quotient rule. So yun ang mga laws of exponent na possible na may apply na natin in discussing zero exponents. Because it's not just only we are here going to simplify expressions involving zero exponents, but also simplify expressions wherein we can make use of those laws of exponents, laws of exponent that we have discussed. So to start with, so yung the reason why we come up with a zero exponent, it is because of the quotient rule. So let's recall the quotient rule. Di ba sa quotient rule, ang una lang na minention natin doon na condition is when your m is greater than n. So zero exponent yung lalabas if we are going to apply the quotient rule whose m is equal to n. So what if m is equal to n? So meaning to say, their exponents are the same. Paano ba ina-apply quotient rule? Di ba ang quotient rule? When we are dividing expressions with same base, we copy that same base, then we subtract exponent. If we are going to do that, when your m is equal to n, so you'll have x raised to m over x raised to n. If your m is equal to n, then we'll come up with an answer which is x raised to 0. Di ba? We copy that same base x, then we subtract exponent. So since their exponents are the same, so we'll come up with an answer which is the zero exponent. And if your exponent is 0, that will be equal to 1. So kailan nagiging 1 lang? If that expression or that term or that terms was raised to a 0, that will be equal to 1. So whenever you encounter expression that was raised to 0, so that is equivalent to 1. So ano ang kailangan nating tandaan in zero exponents? Sabi dito, in zero exponents, you have to take note that any number, variable, or expression raised to 0 is equal to 1. So, madali lang naman intindihin. Whenever you've seen a number was raised to 0, or a variable that was raised to 0, or an expression, the whole expression that was raised to 0, so that is equivalent to or that is equal to 1. So, ganun natin sinisimplify yung zero exponents. So, paano nga ba natin gagawin yun? So, of course, much better if we're going to do it through examples. So, let's have here examples. So, let's have example number 1. The example number 1, the given is x raised to 0. So, as you can see, we do have a variable that was raised to 0. Anong sabi natin kanina? doon sa kailangan natin i-take note. So, any number, any variable, or expressions that was raised to 0 that is equal to 1. So, ibig sabihin, if we are going to simplify x raised to 0, that is equivalent to 1. So, did you get example number 1? So, let's try another. Another example is 3 raised to 0. This time, a number that was raised to 0. So by going back again to that thing that we have to take note, so when you do have a given number that was raised to 0, the answer is equal to 1. So both of them, both number 1 and number 2, ang sagot niya ay 1. Bakit? Because even though they do have the different base, since they do have the same exponent na 0, and according to what you have to take note, so any number or variable that was raised to 0 is equal to 1. Let's try another, number 3. So we do have here 11 raised to 2, quantity raised to 0. So it's just like we are going to apply here the power rule. Diba? Pag in-apply natin power rule, we're just going to multiply exponent to exponent. So that would be 2 times 0 or any number multiplied by 0 is equal to 0. So magiging 11 raised to 0 yon. So that's also the same way as 3, a constant term that was raised to 0. So, when you simplify 11 squared quantity raised to 0, since the whole expression or the whole term was raised to 0, ganun din yun. So, that whole term is equal to 1. So, nakuha na? Another. Sample number 4. The given is 2 over 3xy quantity raised to 0. So, we do have a term here, uh, a rational term which is written in fraction. Those that term was raised to an exponent 0. So even if we apply the power of a quotient rule, still will end up na lahat ng terms niya, both numerator and denominator, will end up to an exponent which is equal to 0. Or dito pa lang alam na natin, since this whole expression was raised to 0, so in order for us to simplify it, so just remember the thing that we have to take note. When we do have a given expression that was raised to 0, then it is equal to 1. So number 4 is equal to 1. Let's try another. So let's have number 5. 123 raised to 0 plus 142. So what would be the answer there? So yung 123, a constant term, was raised to the 0 exponent. So that whole term, this whole term will be equal to 1. So 1 plus 142, you'll come up with an answer which is equal to 143. 143, that means I love you. So, ibig sabihin, when we are going to simplify expressions involving 0 exponents, once we've seen that that's a constant term or a variable or an expression that was raised to 0, that is equivalent to 1. So nag-iiba lang siya ng answer to the given when we simplify the given expressions kapag nahaluan ng iba pang terms or iba pang value. So just like example number 5. So you meron tayo itong plus 142 pa. So we do have 1 is the answer to 123 raised to 0 plus 142. So we'll come up with 143 as the final answer when we simplify example number 5. So did you get examples 1 to 5? So dapat lang kasi those are just simple examples involving 0 exponents. So let's try more examples. So let's have here example number 6. So we do have x raised to 5, y raised to 15, quantity raised to 0, times x raised to 12, y raised to 8, quantity raised to 4. In the case of example number 6, So this first expression here, yung buong expression ng sa first expression was raised to 0. So automatically, that first expression is equal to 1. So ang magiging ano lang natin, if 1 is to be multiplied for the second expression, that will be equal to the second expression itself. So what we are going to do now is just simply as simply simplify, just simply uh, apply the laws of exponent here for us to simplify these expressions now. So we are going to make use of here power rule and power of a product rule. So yung dalawang laws of exponent na yon, gagamitin natin for us to simplify this part. Kasi ito equal to 1 na yan eh. O sinimplify natin 1 times this expression, so makaalalabasan yung expression pa rin ito. So sa madaling salita, ito na lang yung kailangan nating i-simplify. So with the use of laws of exponents, so distribute the exponent on both factors, then since both of them has exponents, so multiply the exponents. So copy the base. So x raised to 12 times 4, that would be 48. Then y raised to 8 times 4, meron kang 32. So that you'll come up with the simplest form or the simplified form of it when we simplify example number 6 as x raised to 48, y raised to 32. So that's how we answer example number 6. So hindi lang natin sinimplify expressions involving zero exponent, but also we applied here the different laws of exponent that we have already discussed. So it's just like every time na tapos na natin siyang i-discuss, ihahalo na natin siya sa mga susunod pa nating discussion. So para every time we answer involving exponents, so napapractice natin siya. Napapractice natin, so in that way, mas matatandaan natin. The more practice we do, then the more na mas natatandaan natin yung different laws of exponent as well as yung simplifying expressions involving zero exponents. Let's have another example. Let's have here example number 7. So in example number 7 here, so the given is a raised to 0 over b raised to 2, c raised to 10, quantity raised to 2 times a raised to 10 over bc quantity raised to 0. So the first thing you're going to do, since the given example involves zero exponent, gawin mo munang, simplify mo muna those with zero exponent. So yung a raised to 0, this a raised to 0 here will be equal to 1. And this BC, quantity raised to 0, will also be equal to 1. So itong nasa left side na to, magiging 1 over B squared over C raised to 10 na yun. So since it was raised to an exponent outside, so with the application of power of a quotient rule and power of a product rule as well as power rule. So, masisimplify natin yung expressions. So, ito, 1 na lang dito ha. So, ito, didistribute natin this exponent on both numerator and denominator. But when it comes to the denominator part, since may factors doon, that exponent is to be multiplied in each of the factors. So, since 1 na lang to, 1 raised to 2, that would be 1 pa rin. So when it comes to the denominator part, we come up here with b raised to 2 times 2, that would be 4. Then when it comes to c raised to 10 times 2, you'll come up with 20. So b raised to 4, c raised to 20. So that is 1 over b raised to 4, c raised to 20. And ang nasa numerator mo ay a raised to 10 kasi this is already 1. So simply multiply na lang yung 1 times a raised to 10, you come up with a raised to 10, then simply copy what is on the denominator part. So we'll come up with a raised to 10 over b raised to 4, c raised to 20. Ano ulit yung b raised to 4, c raised to 20 na yun? Yun yung sagot when we apply power of a quotient and power of a product as well as power rule on this part of this expression. So 2 times 2 will come up with b raised to 4, then 10 times 2 will come up with c raised to 20. So that's why we come up with an answer which is a raised to 10 over b raised to 4, c raised to 20. So nakuha example number 7 na yun. So sana nakuha na. So, but for you to get it more clearly or for you to understand it more clearly, let's try another example. So let's try example number 8. Example number 8, the given is 18 times the quantity x raised to 5 y cubed quantity raised to 3 over 3 times the quantity x squared y cubed quantity raised to 0. So may involve tayong zero exponent. So may involve tayong zero exponent. Let's take for example ito. So this part, on the denominator part, itong expressions lang na to was raised to 0. So ibig sabihin, ito lang yung magiging equal to 1. So since may 3 siya outside, so 3 times 1 is equal to 3. So 3 na lang ang may iwan on the denominator part. When it comes to the numerator part, so meron tayo itong factors that was raised with exponents that was raised again to another exponent. Again, power of a product rule and power rule na pwede natin gamitin for us to simplify this. Just simply multiply, substitute, or distribute this exponent outside with each of the factors inside. Then when it comes to the exponent, multiply exponent to exponent with the application of the power rule. But when it comes to the numerical coefficient na 18 na nasa labas together with 3 na nasa baba, since we are in division, so simply divide 18 by 3. So what is 18 divided by 3? So 18 divided by 3 is 6. So we do have the numerical coefficient na 6. Then simplify na lang to. 3 times 5 will come up with 15. So you'll have x raised to 15. Then 3 times 3 will come up with 9. So you'll come up with y raised to 9. So if we're going to write it, we'll come up with an answer which is 6x raised to 15, y raised to 9. So that's how we answer example number 8. Did you get that? So if not yet, here's another example. So let's try example number 9. So in example number 9, we do have the given 4x raised to 9, y raised to 12, z raised to 18, quantity raised to 0. Over 2x raised to 6, y raised to 10, z raised to 14. So what have you noticed on the given expressions? On the given expression in number 9? So, on the numerator part, the whole expression there was raised to 0. So, ibig sabihin, that whole expression will be equal to 1. So, 1 na lang yung nasa numerator part. Then, on the denominator part, since wala naman tayong involved na exponent on the outside na ni-raise siya, so it will stay as it is. So, simply copy what is on the denominator part. So, to simplify it, we come up with an answer which is 1 over 2x raised to 6, y raised to 10, z raised to 14. So, ang sinimplify lang natin on example number 9 is this part. This part of example. So, we simplify it because since that expression, that whole expression was raised to 0, so that would be equal to 1. So, that's how we answer example number 9. Hopefully, nakuha kung paano sinimplify yung example number 9. Pero kung hindi pa ulit, we do have another example here. On this another example, number 10, the given is 45a raised to 0 over 3a squared quantity raised to 0 times 2a raised to 0, b raised to 8 over 5b raised to 0. Paano yun? May mga involved na 0 dyan. Una, ito, a raised to 0. That a raised to 0 will be equal to 1. So since yung a lang was raised to 0, so 45 will still be there. So 45 times 1, you'll come up with 45 o may iwan on the numerator part. Then on the denominator part, since the whole expression here was raised to 0, so that whole expression will be equal to 1. So magkaiba sila. Dito kasi in the place of the numerator part, only a was raised to 0. But on the denominator part, yung buong expression mismo was raised to 0. Kaya yung buong expression dito sa denominator equal to 1. So meron tayo sa left side na 45 over 1. Okay? Tapos sa right side ngayon. So, same thing. Sa numerator part, sa nasa right side natin, ang a raised to 0, magiging equal to 1. So, yun lang magiging equal to 1. Hindi kasama yung 2 kasi hindi siya hindi siya na nasa loob ng parenthesis na raised to 0 as the exponent. So, magiging equal to 1 yun. Magiging equal to 1 yun. Then 2 times 1, you have 2. So, meron kang 2b raised to 8 lang on this part. Then, on the denominator part, same thing. Yung b only was raised to 0. So, that 5 will be left there. So, may iwan pa rin yung 5. So, pag sinimplify natin yan, we do have 45 times 2. That would be 90 b raised to 8 over 5 na lang. Tama? So, 90 divide by 5. So, 90 is exactly divisible by 5. So, we still have to simplify it. So, 90 divided by 5 is 18. Then, copy, attach yung b raised to 8. So, that will come up with 18b raised to 8. Or pwede rin gawin natin cross multiplication or cross cancellation. So, we can cancel 45 and 5 here para madali na lang. So, 45 divided by 5 is 9. So, 9 times 2, that is still also 18. Then, attach b raised to 8, which is yung naiwan na lang na term doon sa given expressions natin. So, we come up with an answer which is 18b raised to 8 on example number 10. So, nakuha yun? So, let's have one more example para mas matuwa ng mabuti. So, let's have example number 11. So, huwag kayong matakot even if the given expressions involves so many variables or so many exponents. As long as you know on how to simplify or to use the different laws of exponent, or as long as you know on how to simplify zero exponent, so you have nothing to be afraid of. So just do it or apply it correctly, then you will end up with the correct answer pa rin naman. So dapat we have to, ito siguro yung usual na nagiging dahil kung bakit medyo nawawala ng gana or hindi nagugustuhan yung math kasi padakita pa lang, hirap. So, dapat ang thinking, hindi dapat mahirap. Dapat ang thinking, kaya ko yan. I know how to answer that. So, as long as I know on what I am going to do, then, masasagot ko yan. So, just like example number 11. So, the given example number 11 is x squared, y cubed, z raised to 4 quantity. Raised to 0 times x raised to 6, y raised to 7, z raised to 8 quantity raised to 3 all over x raised to 16, y raised to 17, z raised to 18. So on example number 11, we do have there an expression that was raised to 0, particularly this expression. So this whole expression will be equal to 1 because the whole expression was raised to 0, and that 1 times this expression is the same as this expression pa rin. So all we have to do na lang is to simplify this. Simplify natin to involving exponent inside and outside, again with the application of power of a product rule and power rule. Simply multiply or distribute the exponent each of the factors and multiply exponent to exponent. So 6 times 3, you come up with 18. 7 times 3, you'll have 21. 8 times 3, you'll have 24. So since meron ka pa on the denominator part, pero pare-pares naman sila ng variable being used, so it's just like we are going to apply here the quotient rule. Wherein, if you are going to divide expressions with same base, just simply copy the base, then subtract the exponent. So ito na lang yun. Meron ka ditong 18, 21, 24. So same base tayo. When it comes to x, copy that base x, then 18 minus 16 will come up with 2. When it comes to y, same base y, copy that same base y, and this is 21, minus 17, you'll come up with 4. Then for the third variable z, so dito ay 8 times 3, we do have here 24. and 24 minus 18 will come up with 6. So when we simplify that expression in number 11, that would be equal to x squared y raised to 4 z raised to 6. So that's how we answer example number 11. I hope that you understand clearly on how are we going to simplify expressions involving zero exponents, and also on how we apply the different laws of exponent that we have already discussed.